My name is Sister Mary Louise Andes. They call me Mary Lou. And I entered in 1964 out of high school.
And you grew up in Wilkes-Barre. And how did you meet the MSCs, and what made you decide to join?
Well, I was accepted into another institute, the Franciscans of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and they were going to come to see me, interview me, and see if they were going to accept me. And my friend from down the street knew of Mother Cabrini. She was an older woman, older than I am at that point. And she wanted me to think about the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. She knew about Mother Cabrini. She told me there was a school in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and that West Park wasn't too far from where we lived, and that I would be interested in the Missionary Sisters. And I would be very interested in Mother Cabrini, because she knew I liked kids. I loved kids. And I was very friendly. I helped out my neighbors when they needed help. And I talked to my parents about it, and of course they didn't want me to enter anything. And we went up. I wrote a letter to them. I had a wonderful answer from a novice. And we decided let's go see who they are. If you're really serious about that, let's go see who we are. So we took a trip. Didn't take a trip right away. I got permission from them to come up and see them, and I did, and it was just wonderful. I loved West Park. I met the superior of the house, and I met the novice directress, and I met the sister novice who wrote the letter to me. And I fell in love with them. It was love at first sight.
Beautiful. Would you tell us a little bit about where you were missioned and the kind of work that you did?
After the novitiate, I worked for a few days with two twins who worked over in the nearby parish. Remarkable people. Sister Loretta and Sister Regina. And they were remarkable educators. They were so good with the kids. They taught me a lot. And I loved kids at that point anyway. So I learned a lot from them. And it just stirred up the energy in me that I want to be a classroom teacher. So that's what I said I wanted to do. A lot of my sisters, novices, went into nursing in Chicago. Well, we took a train to Chicago. They packed us a lunch basket for overnight and got on the train to go to Seattle with 10 cents each in our pocket in case of an emergency. So we had 10 cents each because they paid for the tickets, and we got to Seattle, and then I got into the classroom. I was supposed to teach kindergarten, but then something happened and there was a change, and I was sent into the 4th grade. At that point, my novice name was Mother Ubalda. Yubalda. And the 4th grade kids hated me because I was supposed to teach kindergarten. And if you taught kindergarten, you were pretty dumb. And they weren't going to accept me as 4th grade teacher. And they didn't. I had 2 kids in my room, in my classroom in the 4th grade, who used to start a fight with each other, and the one boy would turn on the tape recorder and then play the tape at home. So it was an interesting year. It was an interesting year.
Did you tell me earlier that that one place you taught the kids climbed all over you? Do you have kids climbing on your back? Did you tell me about that?
Yeah, in one of the schools I taught, well, most of them, I had 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. I taught up to 4th grade, but my gift was little ones, and they recognized that gift. And the kids were fantastic, you know. When I went to Queen of Peace in New Jersey, I took over the class of a woman who was pregnant and was taking her maternity leave. Uh, when I walked into the classroom, it was like walking into an 8th grade class. And I said, no, this is not a 4-year-old classroom or a kindergarten classroom. So I started taking things off the shelves and painting them. And, you know, there was a patio outside of my classroom. And the mothers would come every day to peek in the window to see what I was doing, because they heard about me. So, but bringing toys out, I had a slide, getting rugs for the floor, all kinds of things. Things appropriate, because I believe that the children should learn through play. They shouldn't be sitting at a table writing. Their fingers are not ready enough to do all of that. They learn through play. Clay. They learn through playing with clay, with tracing and coloring, and not staying in the lines. They weren't allowed to stay in the lines. So I would do something with the pictures so they were bigger and they were thicker and they were able to color. I didn't care if they colored in the lines or not. And then cut out the picture, paste it on a piece of paper, and take it home. So that was my philosophy of education. And I taught in very many schools. From Seattle, I went into New York, Manhattan, Brooklyn. I went into Philadelphia, Scranton again. Back to Philadelphia, back to Brooklyn, and then I just kept bouncing around.
So it's interesting that a lot of the women who came in to the MSCs didn't know much about the charism at the beginning, but what did you know of the charism when you entered, and how do you live it now?
Well, I felt the charism when I went to meet them. It was alive. You know, they were so friendly, so in love with God, in love with Jesus. And that was exhumed through them, you know. It just grabbed you, you know, and made you feel like you belonged to them. They made me feel like I belonged to them. Of course, my sister was crying because I was going to leave her. I was in charge of my sister, who was 7 years younger than I was. And, yeah, it worked out. My parents were very pleased. They knew that was the right place for me to be. The fact that they were involved with children, and I had the opportunity to work with them. There was a little boy, if I can just squeeze in this talk, there was a little boy. We had a kind of like a nursery, a place where the kids live, like an orphanage in West Park. And there was a little boy who couldn't talk. So Mother Archangel, McAngel we used to call her, she said, take a walk and take him with you, because I want you to try to get him to talk. I said, all right, I'll try it. So we would walk, and I would touch a tree and say, tree, could you say tree? He couldn't, he wouldn't. Eventually, When I took him for a walk, all of a sudden he comes out with tree, see tree. And we knew we won. God gave us the gift of letting him talk. And it was wonderful. It was just a really wonderful experience. I had so many experiences as I was teaching. A little boy who called me, his mother called me at Christmas time. We discovered when he was with me that he wasn't doing good. He was scared of math. I said, but we don't do math. We play with numbers. He would hide under the table. So I couldn't use the word math. But then I found out his father was a high-level, what do you call the word that, he works with math. He works with the books.
An accountant?
Audition, yes. I'm saying yeah, I'm sorry. And he started getting sick. And in first grade, they discovered that he had a brain tumor at the base of his brain. So they moved up to where his grandmother was. And I stayed in contact with them. She would call me and tell me how he's doing. The last Christmas, I get a phone call from Marianne, and she said, John wants you to come to tell him that he could go with God. I said, Marianne, I can't do that. I can't tell John he could die. She said, he wants you to tell him he could go with God. I said, all right, I'll be up. Where do you live and how do I get there? So the day after Christmas, I'm driving up to visit with John. And the poor child, his face was popped like a balloon, you know. He was so swollen, and I just cried with him. And I said, John, if you see God or Jesus or an angel, and they come to you, go with them. It's okay, because you're going to be happy with God. You know, God's going to take care of you. And we will see you again, I promise you. So he kind of smiled, and the chills keep going up and down my spine when I think of John. But he was just such a beautiful, beautiful boy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There were a few kids like that.
That's magnificent. So when you were living through this, when you lived through this teaching experience, were you living in community? What was that like?
Giving to community.
Living in a community.
Living in a community.
What was that like, living in community with your sisters?
It was interesting. It was interesting for them because, we didn't have money to buy a lot of things. So I would sit at the community table and make things. So I had stuff all over. Nobody else could use that table, you know. So my messiness kind of got them annoyed, but they loved it in the meantime. I just believed in that, you know. The kids have to work with their hands. They have to learn by doing things, not by sitting at a desk or a table and writing all the time. They have to do things. They can learn math by putting things together. They could putting blocks together and seeing how long something is. How many blocks is your foot, you know? And that's the way I taught. Hands-on experience. And we used to sing and dance, and I didn't give them any more piggyback rides. I had a little rocking horse in the classroom.
And what was it like to live with sisters?
To what?
What was it like to live with other sisters?
It was an interesting experience. It was a community, bonds. You know, we built bonds with each other. We had prayer time together. When we first entered, we learned Latin. We said our prayers in Italian. I'm sorry, not Latin, Italian. And it worked. But then before profession, we had to learn our vowels in Italian because Mother General told us we have to say it in Italian. We were learning English, or we were learning to memorize it in English, but she said no, Italian, Italiano. So Group 5 got together, and we had someone teaching us Italian. And we had a little cheat paper with us. So the bishop didn't mind. He was warned ahead of time.
How would you describe your current ministry?
I'm here in the nursing home. It's COVID did me in. I can't walk yet. Now I'm beginning to, but I can't walk without my teacher's permission. I'm in the wheelchair, and but I've found a new ministry here because I go and I talk to the patients, and they look for me now, or they wait for me. You didn't talk to me today. Oh, I'm sorry, but I thought of you. Or we'll go down to the cafe, and in the cafe I'll chat with people and tell them how beautiful they look. For instance, the other day, this older woman was being pushed by her children, and it was her birthday, and she had a crown on her head. She had the sash, it's my birthday. She had a beautiful dress on. I wished her happy birthday. I gave her a kiss. I sang happy birthday to her, and she was thrilled. And I kept running into her throughout the day. And oh, here's the birthday girl. Oh, I'm so glad to see you again today. And she just was thrilled to death. And that's the kind of thing I like to do now, being present to the elderly. Even the men, they get a kick out of it. Oh, I love you. Oh, I can't go farther than that. I like to make them laugh.
You were just talking about the birthday wishes and visiting. What do you think in this whole life as an MSC, what was the most fulfilling to you personally?
Personally?
Yeah.
The children.
Tell me about that.
One day, I'll give you this story. One day, I said, okay, guys, we're going to go into church to see Jesus. So they were expecting to see a guy, So we went into church, and they're looking around, and where's Jesus? I said, he's up there. He's in that little box. That's his house. Really? He lives in there? He's small enough to live in there? I said, come on, let's go. So we went up and we sat in the sanctuary around the tabernacle. And I told them the story about Peter telling the apostles not to leave the noisy parents bring the children up to Jesus because he was too tired. So Jesus heard them, and he got up and he said, Peter, what are you doing? And Peter got really scared, and he said, well, you're sleeping. No, never keep the children away from me. Never do that. So I told the children that story, and I said, and you know what he did? You know what Jesus did? He called the children up the hill, and they were picking up flowers to take to Jesus, and grass. And they just sat around Jesus, and some of the kids sat on his lap. He put them on his lap, and he was talking to them very softly. Could you feel his whiskers around your face? And they're going like this, and they're rubbing their cheeks, and, because they could feel, they felt it. They felt it. They felt his embrace. That's what touches me. That's what, I made a lot of songs and poetry up for them. And this was in Washington
Heights.
uphill in Manhattan. And there was a storm coming up the Hudson River, and we were right by the Hudson River. So the principal got on the phone and said, "Children, there's a very serious storm coming. I don't want you near the windows. Pull down the shades, move your desk over, and sit behind the desk, or you could even move over by the other chalkboard, or go out in the hallway and sit with the children, but you have to be quiet." Well, one voice started the song. "Jesus, you are a friend of mine. Jesus, you love me all the time. Jesus, you'll never leave me, this I know, because you love me so." Well, I was in tears by then. To hear them singing my song, I knew that was a gift that God had given me. And they kept singing it, and the rest of the kids joined in, and they were singing it over and over and over again. I was in tears. I was in tears. That was a gift, and I knew it. And I was able to write a Christmas song. I was able to write a Christmas book. I wrote a book about Santa Claus and what he was asking baby Jesus to give to the parents, to the world, and to themselves. Because, well, you are a gift of Santa. You are Santa. When you give something to somebody, you're Santa Claus. When you take a gift to somebody, you're Santa Claus. When you pick up a pencil off the floor or give somebody a crayon they need, you're Santa. Because that's what Santa did. And that's what Jesus does. He's constantly giving us things that we need without us asking him.
So if you met a young woman today who wanted to become an MSC, what would you say to her?
I would tell them to really consider it and make sure they're their first choice, that we're their first choice. To go to your parish priest or a priest you know well, and talk to him about spiritual matters. Ask him what you need to do if you're really serious about entering the convent. Are you in a prayer life? I said it's worth it, because you become so much part of Jesus, so much part of the mission. And he has a mission for you, no matter what you do, whether you get married, stay single, or enter religious life. You have a mission that Jesus is giving you. You just have to discover it. And if it's religious life, you'll discover it. He'll lead you to it. And he'll lead you to the place that you need to be. And he'll lead you to the work that you need to have. And don't ever be afraid. And if it doesn't work out, it wasn't meant to be. Maybe you just need to grow up a little bit and take some responsibility for yourself and for others. Don't just sit back and let everybody else do stuff. If you see some some people in the neighborhood who need your help, go to the store for them. Shovel snow when you get it. Just be prepared to have Jesus knock on your heart and say, "Come on in. I'm waiting for you." And you'll know. I said, I would tell them, you will know in your heart. You might have a boyfriend who's, I can't leave him. I want to tell you another story. We have the Cabrini missioners years ago, and one was sent to work with me. And she had a boyfriend she loved very much. They were going to get married, but she decided to become a missionary first. So one day we were talking, and she said, I don't know, maybe I should leave the Mission Corps. I said, why? She said, John misses me too much. And I said, she said, I miss John too much. I said, you know something? If it's meant to be that you're going to get married, Jesus isn't going to make you enter. You're going to get married. Trust in Jesus and trust for where he's calling you. Right now, he's calling you to be a missionary here. When this is over, you're going to know if Jesus wants you to marry John, because he's going to be waiting for you. And they're married and they have 6 kids.
Perfect story. Thank you. So now this is going to be a tough one for you.
I'm sorry?
This will be a tough question for you, because I want you to give me 1 or 2 sentences.
Oh, God. Yes, it will be a question.
Right. What is it like to be an MSC?
To be in ministry?
To be a missionary sister. 1 or 2 sentences. What is it like to be a missionary sister?
Pros and cons. It's tough sometimes. You know, when you're living with a group of nuns, a group of women, it can get tough. Because everybody has their thoughts. It's more than one or 2 sentences, I know. But, you know, they have their opinions of you. You know, maybe they don't like the way you walk or you leave stuff all over. But at the same time, it's a bonding, a real bond that they'll never. Another example? Okay, yesterday, they brought the convent in Manhattan, Sister Angelina came up for health care, okay? And there were many sisters around her. You know, the driver and the company and her, and then I came down, and Sister Damien came down, and there were other people just giving her our camaraderie. You know, we were ready for her, and we couldn't wait to see her again, and the hugs and the kisses that went around that room, you know. It's just wonderful. It gives you, it's uplifting, you know. You really are happy that you're here.
Perfect.
Could I tell you one more story?
Let's see. Yes.
And then you can cut it if you want.
No. Do you want to take water first?
Okay. Thank you.
No, you're great. We love the stories.
I lived with Sister Josephine. She was Mother Cabrini's first orphan. Way back when, in Manhattan, Mother Cabrini was walking the streets and found her huddled in a corner with her baby sister. Her father worked, not in the mines, but building something underground. He was working underground, and her mother was dead. So Josephine had to take care of her sister while her father worked. Never sure what time her dad was going to come, or if he was going to come. So Mother Cabrini was walking and saw her in this corner of the building and said, you know, would you like to come home with me? I'm a sister, and I will help you and your sister, and then I will try to find your dad tomorrow. So she went with them. They went with her, rather. And Mother Cabrini took off her apron and made a dress for Josephine and made something for the little one. And, you know, got them settled in bed and got them all cleaned up and got them settled in bed. Later on, Josephine entered the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart, and she became one of the most valued, loving sister that I could ever think of. We have a lot of them. We have a lot of sisters who could be saints. We just don't have the money. It costs too much money. But really, really valuable people. Well, we're all valuable, but, saint-wise. Anyway, Josephine did a lot of work for the Institute. She went begging. She went begging for food for the missions. A sister would come to her and say, "Mother, we don't have any money for the food. Did you look in your pocket?" Yes, I looked in my pocket. There was money in her pocket. She worked a miracle. We don't have any more bread. We'll go buy some. So, but as Josephine grew older, she started feeling really going down. It was time for her to go to God. Her mission was over. She was in the hospital in a coma. And a lot of us were around her bed, just praying for her, praying the rosary, praying the prayers to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. That's who Mother Cabrini loved, the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And all of a sudden, Josephine wakes up. And she says, "I'm hungry. I want something to eat." And the sister says, "Well, what do you want, Mother?" "Pasta. I want some pasta." So she said, "Well, I'll see if the cook is still downstairs, okay?" So the superior went downstairs, found the cook, told her what would happen. So a little while later, he comes up with a big bowl of pasta for her. Because on the way down, she said, "and bread, Italian bread." Okay, so he brings up a big bowl of pasta and Italian bread. She's eating it to her delight with a big smile, and her face just showed that she loved this pasta. She finished eating and she died. Well, talk about shock. Said, "Mother, you died happy, didn't you?" That's what the Sacred Heart does for you when he's ready.